Hello, everyone. I'm Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of Treasury Webinars. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today, 20 Must-Have KPIs, Creating a Perfect Dashboard that Evaluates AR Performance. I would like to thank our webinar partner today, Radiance. Radiance empowers corporations to modernize receivables in order to lower DSO, minimize write-offs, and reduce operating expenses. And their strong commitment to thought leadership helps make this webinar possible today. The ability to leverage data and analytics is essential for scalable credit and AR processes, but it is also what separates execution-focused AR professionals from strategic finance leaders. While there is no shortage of data within your credit and AR processes today, how effective has your team been in using that data to spot key trends, take timely corrective action, and deliver insights to drive long-term strategy? The perfect AR dashboard comprises of 20 must-have KPIs and metrics that deliver visibility while enabling process owners to drill down and identify root causes and improvement opportunities. Today, we will share insights from over 500 successful AR transformation projects to help your company build the perfect dashboard while avoiding common pitfalls that lead to analysis paralysis. Before I delve into the content, I'm going to offer a few quick words about Treasury webinars, cover a few housekeeping items, and then I'm going to welcome my co-speaker, Taylor Bartlett, to the webinar, and then we'll review the agenda for our time together today. Now for the exciting housekeeping items. For anyone interested in CTP credit for today's webinar, you'll have to answer all my polling questions during the webinar and remain on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions regarding CTP credits, please send an email to ernie@treasurywebinars.com. Again, that's ernie@treasurywebinars.com. We'd love to hear from you today, so you can ask your questions at any time in the Q&A area of your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll do our best to get to your questions at the Q&A session during the tail end of the webinar, time permitting. Fear not, if we do not get to your question during the webinar, I will follow up with you directly regarding your question. Finally, we appreciate your consideration in taking a short survey at the end of the webinar today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. It is now my pleasure to welcome my co-speaker, Taylor Bartlett, to the webinar. As the lead of Radiance Analyst and Press Relations Program, Taylor is dedicated to educating industry analysts and media about the impact of AI-enabled order-to-cash automation on the Office of Finance. Taylor, welcome to the webinar. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Hey, Ernie.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll hear from Taylor a little bit later. So now let's go through the agenda for our webinar today. So we're going to start things off with what we like to call the vicious cycle of reporting. So obviously key to the value of our KPIs and analysis is the reporting. And so I like to talk about reporting versus intelligence. So reporting is just numbers and papers. Intelligence actually impacts decision. So we'll talk about how companies get into the vicious cycle of reporting. I have spent many years there myself as a treasury and finance leader, and then we'll talk about how to break that cycle and really do a better job of meeting the user's expectations from reporting and giving them information, the right data at the right time to improve decision making and impact the bottom line. And then we'll talk about leading technology and how it's enabled companies to do out-of-the-box reporting fueled by artificial intelligence. And then we'll wrap things up with our summary and our Q&A. So in order to benchmark kind of where we're at on the technology front, I'm going to go ahead and launch our first polling question. Just asking you all to share with me, if you would, how you currently generate reports to track credit and AR performance. I want to remind all of you that are interested in CTP credits for today's webinar that you'll need to answer all of the polling questions. Of course, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions here today. Also, want to remind you that I can take your questions at any time in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll go ahead and leave the polling question up for another 15 seconds or so. Then we'll go ahead and take a peek at the results, and then I'll go ahead and make any comments that I see based on the results, based on what I'm seeing from the survey data, recent survey data. So let me go ahead and close this polling question here, and then we'll go ahead and take a quick peek at the results. So we have 59% leveraging spreadsheets, which is obviously a little lower than I thought we might see. 31% from ERP is a little bit higher than I would have expected. And hopefully what we'll see by the end of the webinar, in fact, what I know you'll see is the tremendous value that can be obtained from upgrading from spreadsheets. And then also in terms of ERPs, ERPs just weren't designed from AR expertise. And so I think what we'll see is the right AR automation solution can actually supercharge your ERP system. So thank you very much, everyone, for your consideration in answering our polling questions here today. So let's talk about the vicious cycle of reporting. I'm sure, hopefully, some of you are going to be nodding your heads. I have been in this seat, and it's a perfect example of AR reporting, but this example goes across the enterprise for any type of reporting, whether it's treasury management metrics, whether it's sales metrics, whether it's any type of information and reporting. It could be that financial information, that monthly report. So what we often see is we see there are a lot of input sources, and then these are disparate sources. So we can have our ERP, we can have data that's maybe manually keyed in from our collections team, deductions team, credit team, cash application team. So we have that data input. How are we getting that data? What is the quality of the data? Again, we have issues in extracting the data, and then we manually build the reports, right, with our spreadsheets. 60% of us are using spreadsheets. And then oftentimes we send the same report to all managers and executives. Let's stop and think about that a little bit. And I'm going to confess that I did this when I was a treasury manager. But if you really think about it, we need to pay more attention to the consumers of our report. So there's really two questions I like to ask is every year or so, I would look at all the reports that I create and ask who is consuming them and why. And then of the consumers of the reports, am I giving them what they need? Do I get their feedback? Do I ask them what they need? What is the value of the reports? So often we have consumers of reports, analysis, information that we need, right, in order to improve performance in whatever we're looking at. Today we're looking at accounts receivable, but really across the board, I think this is a good way to look at segmenting the consumers of our reports. We have finance executives, and then we have our functional managers. So what happens if we give them the same type of reports? Dramatic pause, right? So obviously, they're going to come back at us with need more insights, because depending on how your reporting was set up, it could have been more geared towards finance executives and maybe not even meeting their needs, but also the functional managers. So the finance executives probably have a higher level view, so they're looking at more aggregate-based metrics. We'll talk about this a lot later, so maybe the cost of AR processing. But then the functional managers are more interested in things related to the productivity of their analysts. So what happens? You need more insight, we need more reports, and then this cycle just keeps going and going and going. And many consequences to the way this is done. On the top side, data quality, manual data, the time that it takes. And so the other big piece is the timeliness of the information. So by the time we go round and round and round in getting our folks the right information, we have in fact probably missed opportunities to improve decision making, and we could have also potentially missed opportunities for growth and also to provide more value to our customers. So we'll talk about this a lot later, but this is kind of the vicious cycle. And so I love this slide. This is one I would print out. So just kind of look at where you're at. So in terms of the value on the reporting and KPI slide, I would look at it as this is where we're at. This is where we need to be. And then look at what do we need to do to get there. The good news is in terms of AR performance, if you look at a leading AR automation solution, technology is definitely going to be able to get you to where you want to be. Better news, it's going to be able to do so in a cost-effective manner. And there are values across the enterprise in terms of reducing processing costs, especially the time spent on the phone, time spent back and forth with your managers. So how much time do we really want to have our managers and finance executives spending going back and forth on this because we're not getting them the right information at the right time? They have no ability to really drill down into the numbers the way they want, and there's no self-service reporting. So that's what I say is probably the base case, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's very common. The good news is we'll talk about how you can break that. So again, as I mentioned before, it's time consuming, it's heavily resource dependent, and there's a high scope for errors. So I look at this as exposures. So here we go. So we have analysts here, right? So we have analysts extracting data. That's a source for error. We have manually built spreadsheets and reports. That's another source of error. And then you send the same reports, and that's a source of allocation of resources error. So if we start to look at that, right, we start to see the issues there in more detail, granular detail. And then again, going to the bottom, we have lack of customization, and then need more insight. So those are just the challenges which I talked about. So summary of those challenges. So these are really inherent barriers to reporting success, and really part of that is the analysis in the report. So inherent barriers you might have: no real-time information. You could have multiple versions of the truth. We can have an Excel webinar talking about what an issue that is, but that's very common in spreadsheets. Again, resource and time intensive process. And in some cases, you can have data overload with a high scope of error. So you have too many starting and ending points. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that we do, we love metrics and KPIs, we have this data, but I really think we need to go on some sort of a data diet. So we want to make sure, what are the drivers of our performance? What are the KPIs that matters most? So our executives are going to want to have a different dashboard more than likely than our functional manager. And then one of the other challenges is there's a lack of drill down reporting. So again, a little self-analysis here by our report consumers there. And so that there's a lot of to and fro to build reports for that more in-depth understanding. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch our next polling question before we start to get into these metrics and KPIs. Just trying to get your sense of, from your company, what metric is most important for you to traffic. Is it deduction days outstanding, DSO, bad debt write-offs, average days delinquent, cost of AR operations? Which one of those is more important? Or I should say all of the above are very important, which I guess I'm biasing that by putting all the above are very important, but it's just something that I want to get out there. And so a lot of folks focus on DSO, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I want to remind everyone that if you're interested in CTP credit, you'll need to answer all of our polling questions here today. Again, I appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all of our polling questions. I'll go ahead and leave the polling question up another few seconds, and then we'll take a quick look at the results. So let's go ahead and close the poll. Let's take a quick look at the results. So not surprising, we have 53%, which is good. All of the above are very important. And so if nothing else, I hope that this has shown that I think all of these things they're really interrelated. And so I think all of them obviously impact AR performance. And so I think it also shows we need to take a holistic approach to accounts receivable. So rather than just look at how do we make credit decisions, how do we manage deductions, right? How do we manage issues? We need to look at this in totality, and all these things drive the cost of AR operations. Obviously, DSO is important. The good news is that we will show that the right solution, AR automation with the right processing technology, can impact all of these metrics, which are key to AR performance. So let's talk about the expectations from reporting. So let's take a look and help us understand our consumers just a little bit more. I think this can be important. If you haven't had these conversations, it's a good idea that you have them with the consumers of your reporting. Maybe if you're the CFO, you have this conversation with your AR team, your Treasury team. So I think these can be good teaching slides as well. So you have really, as I mentioned, two consumers. We have our finance executives and our functional managers. The good news is that I've been both, so I can speak to the need from both sides and why they need to be different. But for finance executives on the left side, we're more looking towards that cash flow analysis, right? Optimal deployment of cash and not getting money tied up in accounts receivable. So, and that's becoming more important, especially to publicly traded companies. And then some of the things that we're looking at is high-level monitoring of all essential metrics. So really, every day we want to get that, take the temperature, are things moving in the right direction, the wrong direction. And so really for executives, so a lot of times the dashboard is really an indication that they might need to ask a question, right? So they can go in, and look, okay, oh, it looks like cost of AR is going up. If I can't click in and get that immediately, okay, maybe I need to reach out to my credit manager. And so really what they're looking for from those reports is a drive long-term strategy for financial well-being. Really what we hope is that our functional managers are really focused right on that performance, day-to-day performance, understanding what impacts the productivity of all those under their charge, and then they can communicate that back to the finance executive. So if we need more data, if we need more training, that can get communicated back. So that we give the functional managers the information to optimize that performance, and then the finance executives get to see, oh, good, look at these high level metrics. We're going the right way, we're going the wrong way. Let's ask why. And we're always cognizant that we are optimizing our deployment of cash. So again, functional managers, strategic guidance for performance management, finance executives, a little bit of a high level look, drive long-term strategy for financial well-being. The good news is that leading solutions allow you to customize the dashboards and the metrics that are shown. So you may have finance executives who like to get a little bit more in the weeds. We don't want that too much, but we definitely want to be able to meet the needs of our finance executives as well. And so what we look for in terms of that dashboard for the finance executives, these are some best practices, single view of all the processes. We'll talk about the ones that we would recommend you might want to look at. You want to have easily identifiable trends. So a couple that I mentioned earlier, overall effect and cost of AR operations, and then showing the metrics. We're looking at trends over time, improved, degraded over the course of time. And some things will be self-evident, right? Maybe we made an acquisition, maybe we changed our policy, and it's a good way to verify that we're going in the right direction or determine the unintentional consequences. And what it really does, easily identifiable trends really help us identify areas that need our attention and foster business agility. So again, we don't want to be caught in the sand with a strategic anchor, right? We want to have the information that we need. Are we going in the right direction? Are things changing in the market? Did the Fed change rates again? That might have something to do with it. So how do we react? Are we seeing anything? Do we need to do anything? Do we wait and see? How do we do that? And then the frequency of reporting, I guess it depends on what you're looking at. Really on that dashboard, a lot of the metrics can be updated almost on a daily basis, depending on how often you're pushing data. But some of the key metrics we're looking at almost on a daily basis. But obviously, if you're looking at a monthly report or a biweekly trend, that information isn't going to be updated. But again, we want to look towards the situation where the metrics are updated automatically, so we don't have to manually push data back and forth. Our systems have systems integrability, so we can push that information back and forth, which is especially important in terms of our ERP and our AR automation solution. So let's take a look at this view that I would say is, if I was a finance executive, this is a thing that typical dashboard. And like I said, based on the experience and the data that we have from our webinar partner, again, over 500 transformation projects and many more customers. This is some of the feedback that they've gotten and helped companies really drive performance. So we look at, here we have DSO, that monthly trend. So obviously we're like, whoa, what happened over here? And so month by month we can see, is that trend going in the right direction, in the wrong direction, and then why? And then we will also look at the increments, right? What are we seeing month over month? How much driving these changes? We could probably click down into some detail here. And then our cost of AR operations, right? We look at this. So maybe we have a projection. What is this versus actual? Oops, why is this going up? This is not necessarily a bad thing. Cost $1 million, so it might be going up because we have more AR items. That may be a function of our growth. Maybe we're going into new markets. Bad debt write-off, monthly trend. So we obviously want this thing to be at the zero, right? We don't want to do that. So hopefully, so this would be a good thing to see, but this could also be due to functionality, right? So you might see a spike here as we get to the end of the year in terms of our demand and how that flows through our AR in terms of our collection efficiency. But we want it. So I would imagine there's some seasonality here in October and beginning of fall, and then we've got some seasonality here. And then we also want to look at our cash projection report. So one of the things that having that visibility and look is it's going to help us with our cash forecasting. And so that's going to be great for our working capital optimization and for our treasury folks. So we can see our cash projection, where our cash is coming from. We could also we could also plot some plan versus actuals here and see what's really driving any differences that we have. But we want to see, okay, what's our cash projection? Okay, good. We got distributors going in the right direction. Okay, good. I'd expect to see that. Oh, February 3rd, obviously, maybe there's beginning of the month discounts. So, in addition to identifying the trends, it's also going to help us kind of level set and say, okay, that makes sense, right? You look at it as executive, you want to understand why the numbers are moving, and then hopefully it becomes a proactive process where you're going to know, right? You're also looking at the same metrics. Your AR team, and when you're pushing out the data, right? You're looking at your area like, oh, okay, I know they're going to ask a question here, and maybe possibly be proactive. Send out a notice and say, hey, you'll notice that XYZ, and that's more about telling the story behind the numbers, which is something that the leading solutions can help us do as well. So again, I talked a little bit about this, but let's just do a little bit of a deeper dive. I think it's very important. Obviously, financial executives are extremely intelligent, but sometimes it helps, when they're getting the dashboard, decrypting the dashboard, and you can be proactive, right, in telling them things. So let's take a look at DSO. Obviously, this was our number one. If we looked at individual metrics that are important, 35% of you, illustrates how well the company's ARs are being, accounts receivable are being collected. But if we just take a look here, we see that spike, right? And then we see that big drop, but then we see trends here. And so we want to make sure that as we look here, we obviously don't like to see that spike, but it may be something that we expected, might be the cost of doing business. And as we look at next year, right, this might be something that we might say, okay, let's look, our DSO shot up really high here. So one of our goals for next year, strategic goals, is to get that down, to get that jump down. So what can we do to get that down? What's driving this? But then first, okay, why did we jump? Holiday season, right, during Christmas. And then two is increasing holiday program. And then we have maybe have some lax credit terms as well. So we just want to understand, and we want to see, okay, and then also in addition to these points, let's look at what's going on between these 2 months. And two things to look at: not only the DSO amount, but what's our delta here, right? And what's bumping our delta. And if we have these programs, okay, we can start to see the impact of those programs. Ooh, it drove DSO by more than we thought. Why? So ask those questions. So this is just a way to help decipher those dashboards, and also, again, proactively telling that story to the executives as they consume their reports can be tremendously valuable. And then let's look at AR operations. Again, I think that's just a really good high level operation. As I mentioned earlier, it looks like if we go from here to here, as I mentioned, cost of AR operations, it's not necessarily a horrible thing because we're doing more business, right? And then we look at the adoption of our solution. So let's look at the increase between the points, right? It's going downward. That's a good thing. So if our AR operations trends is going up, it might not be a bad thing because we're doing more business. Let's look at this increase that we have. So for sake of argument, sales is going up by 30%, and our cost of operations, the percentage from year over year, is trending downward from the year. So this is very encouraging, and I would give kudos to that team. Another thing we might want to look at in our quadrant is our bad debt write-off monthly trend. So what's going on? What's causing these issues? Again, as I mentioned earlier, some of that can be year-end, and some of this can be issues maybe in the credit review, and we'll talk about how that can be automated going forward. So that's one of the things where automation can really play a key tool, is more effective analysis of the financial risk that we might face. And then, as I mentioned, I'm a treasury person, so this is my favorite part. We can look at the cash projection, and so forecasting is an integral part. And so the cash flow pattern, right? So we might want to look at some of these issues, and then some of the causes, projected amount for B1, what the cash projection for B2 is higher than that for B2. So what's going on? We have kind of emerging and dissolution of B1, and then we can have increasing sales for B2, which was our source. So helps us. Again, we want to make sure that we can decrypt the dashboards, make sure that our consumers can decrypt the dashboards, but the cat's meow is to be able to proactively help them decipher the insights that are being shared through the dashboard. And then some other essential metrics, which we feel are important, which was also something that folks reported, and I think this is important as well. Days deduction outstanding monthly trend. In my opinion, it doesn't get enough attention because I think a root cause of this is just where technology is an inherent barrier. Inherent barrier is that we just don't have the systems in place, the data in place to proactively manage days deduction outstanding. So we want to especially leading solutions have intelligence and machine learning that can help us understand why DDO might be going up. How do we do a better job of issue resolution? So some of it is due to the asymmetry of information that we have with our customers. Maybe self-service reporting could help. You're looking at the same thing, and for certain customers, you can start to identify trends. They're taking deductions. Why is that? These companies keep on doing this month over month. Is it our issue on the communication side? Do we need to involve our sales team? Do we have a process issue here? Can we automate the process? Can we improve the communication of what it means to take a deduction? And can we empower our team to proactively manage that and make those go down? So we really like to see this, right? Days deduction outstanding. We like to see that thing just go right there, right? So that's a great thing. Other things, open deductions by aging bucket. So you might want to dig a little deeper. Nobody likes to see this right here, right? So you want to look, and this is obviously important, and that's a big number, right, compared to the other numbers that we have. So we would love to see everything that is in compliance with our policy. Maybe it's 2 net 30, and so we like to see this number. We want to see this go over here, and we want to figure out what's driving that, right? Who is in here? Why are they in here? And how much time do we spend to make this number go away, right? So a couple of potential causes: high deductions made by key accounts, or increase in line items per deduction, increasing the workload. So in that open deductions value, we want to see why that's taken so long. So now let's transfer over to the other perspective of our report consumers, which will be the functional managers. So again, we're going to look to more frequent reporting, daily and weekly. Daily, every day, we want to see what's going on. We want to be proactive. We want to have agility in terms of our strategic agility in optimizing the performance of our team. So there's really three essentials for I would say the functional manager dashboard would be the process health indicator. So what is the efficiency of the process in general, and then the individual analyst productivity. So those working on the team, how are they impacting that process health indicator? How are they doing? And then, of course, our customer level insight. So obviously, we are walking a fine line here, right, in accounts receivable. And I think accounts receivable teams, and again, I think it comes with training too, but they need to be more mindful of every interaction that they have with the customers. So the old saying, but the customer is king. And I think that's even more important in today's world, because what we're seeing more is a transition to a subscription economy. So we have to do a better job. We have to earn that business more often. It's no longer that we have a big sale and then, okay, our customers, they might not buy anything for another 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. We need to continually earn that business. So we need that customer level insight, one, to tell us what's driving the metrics, but also which of our customers need attention. And then those that might need more attention, we need to be mindful of the communication that we have with them. And we can start to identify trends in terms of what is most effective in maybe responding to customers that are in certain industries or have certain characteristics. And we can start to get that funnel of communication, not just hammering people with email, email, email. Okay, when does a phone call make sense? When is there a script for that phone call? Who needs to make that phone call? If one needs to be made, what's the ROI of that phone call? So all these things are things that we can learn with the right solution. So first, process health indicators, as I mentioned, how well is the process performing? So what does that dashboard do for us? It helps us monitor the key results, look at the trends in the performance metrics, and then helps us drive course corrections to improve the results. So here is the value, right? In my mind, I don't think this gets enough attention. So we're giving someone a dashboard. We're giving them all this information. Where does the value come in? Right here. Does this information drive course corrections to improve the results? Are we making educated decisions, more educated decisions on a day-to-day basis? Is it helping us spot areas for continuous improvement? If not, then we are spinning our wheels and there's really not a lot of value in the resources that we allocate. So let's take a look. Let's look at this past due monthly trend. And so obviously it's important to know the past due receivables as a percentage of accounts receivable. So we take a look from July to August, and then we compare that with December, January. So we see in terms of the year, we see that spike in Q3, and then we see it go down a little bit, and then we see that go up a little bit in Q3 and Q4. Things that we know about our business, okay, seasonal offers lead to a boost in sales, but then the other part of the causes could be not enough resources to cope with the increase in seasonal demand. So we may have a lot more items that we need to keep track of, and so it may be that our analysts don't have bandwidth. So if we can automate a lot of these processes, then we can give our analysts time back in their day to focus on strategic activities and drive down those past due amounts. And also, with better information and more timely, we can understand what are the root causes of those past due amounts and what can we do to help mitigate those. Let's talk a little bit about our deductions monthly trend. So we did a little bit on this. Let's dig a little deeper. So recovery of invoice disputes and short payments, and this can be an area of tremendous opportunity. And so it's critical to keep track of the deductions, and this can be a very manual process. So this can be a complicated process, and any type of automation that you can introduce can really be effective. It can really move the needle. So just take a look here. Example of a company that was able to leverage some automation. So you're looking at invalid deductions, and so let's look what happened there when this project got going. Drove those almost to zero in a few months. So, and then we can look at the differences between those lines. But what we're looking to do as we're looking to empower our team, right? Okay, here's a trend. What's the root cause? What can we do in order to help mitigate that monthly trend? Does that need to happen? Is that just a function of the seasonality? Maybe, maybe not. If nothing else, we want to mitigate that. What about 2018? Let's say there's a seasonality between May and June. Let's make sure that we understand what's driving that, and then next year, right? Let's make sure that we do everything we can to minimize that. So that may be a metric, but what you should see going forward is the type of trend that we see here. So I think all of these slides are really important in the detail, helping understand what it is that can be valuable. And we'll talk about, at the end of the webinar, we'll give you the dessert, which will be these 20 key metrics on one slide, which if I had to print one slide out, I would definitely do that. And then we can go back to your team and say, okay, are these things that we're tracking? If so, great. Are they working? Why not? And then are these things that could add value? So if certain people had this information, could it impact their decision making in a positive manner? If so, we absolutely want to work to get them that information. And then what would that value be? So let's start to put that business case together if we're going to invest in AR automation. And so let's take a look at the effectiveness of our payment processing. So let's look at we want to close open invoices of ERP. So how will the cash application team? So this is my treasury part. Again, and this can be a huge pain point, and this is really a key part of the value proposition for AR automation solution is the ability to improve that cash application. True story from my Treasury days. We had a customer, big customer of ours. It would take probably 2 or 3 weeks in order to apply the cash as it came in. So that's definitely not good. So we definitely want to see that unprocessed number and that partially applied go down. And then we want to see that applied number go up, right? And so, this is what we want to see. If we're seeing something go in the wrong direction, maybe we can click on the graph. So, and then we want to see what's driving that number. And so this is a key area. So you want to look at the effectiveness of that cash application process. Not applying cash has many possible implications. One which I experienced was I worked in manufacturing. There was cash that hadn't been applied to an account. So credit didn't have visibility into that. So they rightly, by a policy, decided to hold an order. Hold an order. What happens if you hold an order when someone's made a payment? I bet they're not going to be very happy. So this helps us be better, be better customers, better partners to our customers. So let's take a look at individual analyst productivity. So again, functional managers, one of our jobs is to absolutely impact that performance. So what do we want to know? How well are they performing? And then you want to monitor the performance of your analysts, compare them, right? Maybe if you have more than one analyst over time, maybe there's industry benchmarks that we can look at. And then you want to discover and implement standard best practices. Some of those best practices are going to be fueled by automation. So let's take a quick look here. So this is an example. CEI is the best metric. So let's take a look at metric for our different collectors. So we can see here. So what's the possible causes here that we have? If we can see the numbers, we can see maybe these numbers are going down. Richard, Richard is on the low end, and Carrie is on the high end. So does this make sense? Is it a function of the accounts that they have? Is it something that we're rolling out to our department? So let's look at that collection efficiency index and see. So this is an index that I don't think gets enough attention, and so this lets us monitor the difference here. But then, as we monitor this, we need to understand, what are we doing? What are the industries that we're focusing on? So maybe someone is at the low end or high end because they are given the most challenges in terms of what they're expected to manage. And so one of the things that we look at is applications processed, and so in some ways that can be a good thing. We want that to be automated, but also we want to make sure that they are processed correctly. So we obviously don't want applications being processed if they shouldn't be processed, and so we want to look at the folks, but we also want to look at over time, January, February, March. Okay, what's driving that number? And this may show that sales are showing good growth. So if we see those numbers that are going up, we see definitely, it looks like February we're growing and March we're growing. So one of the things that's good about dashboards is sometimes in addition to letting us know what we need to do, it's just kind of a level set, right? Does this make sense to what's going on in our business? I would expect to see XYZ. So maybe you think, maybe our sales are growing quite a bit. I wonder why our number of applications has not gone up or go down. So it helps us ask the right questions. And then looking at the analyst productivity deductions, average number of days to resolve a deduction by owner. So this is important. Now we look at December and January. These can be seasonal, but when you look at this production, you want to look at production across your employees, but you also want to look at your employee over time, right, as well. So you want to look at what's going on month over month, but we also may want to look at, Lillian, she's got this high number. Well, why is that, right? Is she given the toughest accounts? And then if these toughest accounts would be our most important accounts, we want to make sure that we've got the right person on that account in terms of managing those communications. My suggestion would be that you have standard communication scripts, that your AR managers, credit managers, even your CFOs are involved in those scripts and those communications. So we want to make sure that we are communicating in a tactful manner, right? And some of that we can get from visibility into our interactions with our customers. So really, it's almost like we can, if we have a log of all the customer interaction, that would be tremendously helpful as well. So another way to help us manage that productivity, and then we want to look at our exception handling. This can be a time warp here, and so we really want to look at the effectiveness there. Um, and then what we see here, obviously, this is a number that we don't like to see, but we love to see this, right? These exceptions and some of those effective cash application is certainly something that really drives our result. So obviously, ancillary to this would that'd be great if they're handling exceptions, but how long did that take? So why do we have this number here? Again, it could be customer specific as well. Just gives us, okay, where we're at, questions we need to ask, and then corrective actions that we might want to take. And then some more customer level insight we talked about. We might want to look at our top 10 delinquent customers. So, what's driving this? It could be increasing the number of orders. It could be transition to more liberal payment terms based on past history. So, so we want to take a look at that. So we want to look at what's the amount? What is that amount? Is it going up? Again, is it going up over time? Is it going up by customer? What are the drivers in these changes? Are there things that we can change? Do we want to change them? Are there underlying changes such as terms? Do we need to look at the terms? So what are the things that we can do to mitigate those? And we can also deem from this also, how effective is our credit terms as well, and we can start to look at, and we can also get a better sense of our exposures month over month. So we don't want to see delinquency, but we can start to see what that trend is, what that amount is. That helps us on the cash forecasting side as well. And then more customer level insights. As I mentioned before, it's really important that we start to understand the behaviors of our customers, and that machine learning can help us do that. But if you start to look at that resolution time, right, you look at that by customer, and then we'll start to see, whoa, 70 minutes, what's going on here? So there's got to be something going on. There's a root cause. I would imagine that there is an asymmetry of information there that's going on, or there's issues with terms, deductions, contracts. There's something going on here. So we want to look at this at that point in time, but we also want to look at this over time, and maybe there's a drill down here with our customer. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, maybe there was something that took a really long time with this company and the resolution. So so without having the ability to go back and look, we can't really dig in, but it does tell us that we might want to take a look, especially here and here. And so again, this can be a really time consuming. I've seen numbers where folks spend hours a week, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, just having phone calls with deductions. A lot of that time could be mitigated with the sharing of the right information, really clearing up issues that can be spotted by trends in behavior. Someone keeps taking deductions over and over and over again. There's probably a root cause for that. So we need to cut that off at the pass and make sure we get aligned. We may have to get our sales team aligned, but let's get aligned and decrease those. And then more customer level insights. We get to that cause and effect. Top 10 reasons code. So what's going on? What are the reasons? What are the reasons that we're having these deductions? So this is what we don't want to see, right? Unknown. So we definitely need to look at our data, redefine our categories. Maybe we need to get more information from those folks on the reason code. So we need to make sure that we get a handle on that. We want to make sure we look at the difference in these numbers again over time, but also let's take a look and see what these are, what's driving these, what customers, what programs do we have. So there may be a program in here. These are things that we can change, right? Features, unknown. Don't like to see that as the biggest here. And I guess it depends on your industry, right? I'm not an expert in all of your industries, but that's something that would concern me. But again, let's take a look at these values by reason code, but then let's also look at those over time as well. And then also if we have some industry benchmarks into those reasons codes, that could be tremendously value as well. And then that payment processing, customer level insight. One of the things we can look at is if the payment is taking place through a portal. In general, if it's going through a portal, it's a much more efficient process. So we like to see that. And then another thing that we like to see is we like to see customers that are paying us the way we want to be paid. And oftentimes, it's much easier to get that remittance information electronically. So it can be much more cost effective to process electronic payments than checks. And if done correctly, you can mitigate your lockbox cost. I have had lockboxes all around the world, and they are not fun. So if we could mitigate that, that would be tremendously value. So some of the benefits of the ideal dashboard, we're really cutting through that surplus data, that really doesn't matter. We want to go on that data diet. Let's understand what our consumers of those reports need and when they need it. And then it provides the agility to spot trends that might affect us in the long run, might impact our customers, our business, and then allows us to take remedial actions to change course and bring the processes back in track. So I like to say it gives us that business agility. Again, I've said this several times, but I think we're going to see more and more focus on AR and the value of the quality of the interactions that they have with customers. We want to mitigate those back and forth with our customer. We want to make those effective. And what we see in the solutions that offer us that machine learning is that we start to spot trends. So we start to see there may be an issue next month. So let's proactively send a message. Oh, what kind of message? Okay, we need an email message. Maybe this one person needs a phone call. So it really helps us in the efficiency of everything that we do. And then as we automate things more and more, it allows our staff to spend more time on value add activities. So we have all this things that we like to see, but as we mentioned before, we are still stuck in that vicious cycle that we mentioned before. So what can we do about that? Well, so the impact on AR, if we have that, is that we can have decision making is either slow and it's accurate, or it's fast and inaccurate. So we don't like to have to choose between either of those, right? So we want to have fast, accurate, and I would also add informed decision making. So what's the solution? What role can technology really play here? So before we talk about that, I'd like to bring Taylor back in, and she's going to give us a little background about our sponsor, HighRadius, who is definitely on the leading edge of the technology provided in the AR automation solution space. Taylor?
Yeah, thanks, Ernie. So yeah, I just want to take a little bit of time to set some context around HighRadius and what we have to do with all of this anyway. So for those of you that might not be familiar with us, we are a fintech SaaS company founded a little more than a decade ago in Houston, Texas, and our focus is really on helping companies automate their order to cash process with an emphasis on receivables specifically. And the way that we do that is with our integrated receivables platform, which you can see kind of on the right-hand side of your screen there. And that platform covers everything from credit to cash, and including that rich reporting functionality within each solution that we've been talking about today. We're proud to be the only provider of a fully integrated platform, which has helped us become the #1 platform of choice within the Fortune 1000. And across all of our customers, just to give everyone a feel for the scale of this, our platform has processed more than $500 billion in receivables this year alone. So just some quick context for everyone.
Oh, thank you very much, Taylor. Tremendously important. And in addition to all these great things about HighRadius and how they are effectively serve their customers, is their commitment to thought leadership. So if you were to go to the HighRadius website, you'll see resources that are designed to improve the productivity and career success of AR professionals. So that is why they are one of my favorite partners. So they share my commitment to thought leadership. So when we talk here, well, I always like to share the leading technology. So that's definitely what we're going to be looking at, some screenshots. The reason we share that is because it's leading technology and really takes us from theory to practice, which I think is very, very important. A lot of times we talk about companies want to do X, Y, Z, but how does it actually work? So let's talk about breaking that cycle. So here's kind of where we were before. We had all these red areas. Now let's talk about the ideal, right? This is like the reporting dream for both people that create the reports and those that consume them. So we still have many input sources, right? The lay of the land isn't going to change. What about if we automatically extract the data? We don't have to go in, manually pull data, use Excel. We're automatically building the reports based on industry practices. So what is it that we want to see? What are the metrics that we want to see? And then how do we want to see them? And then if you get down a little bit further, how does a specific person want to see them? And then we want to segregate and customize dashboards for users, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we met the needs of our customers? So what happens if we do this and we understand our customers and we segregate those? So what happens? More insights needed? Possibly, but tremendous more than often not. No, we know our consumers, what they want, and why they want it. So again, perfect scenario. So wouldn't it be great? Your customers, you'd never had any problems. Your customers is like Apple has been able to do. You know what they need before they need it, right? Your customers, you have happy customers. Happy customers get the report and they're happy, and there might be a little tweaking that goes back and forth, but we're not going to see the time that's spent. So this is really what we're trying to get to. And so how do we get there? How do we get there with the leading solution that's out there right now? So let's take a look at just some of the screenshots functionality that we have. So this is great. As I mentioned, you can have different dashboards, requirements. There's collections reports, right? We might want to look at collector management. So we have top customers by open AR, right? We talked about that. So this might be a functional manager here. We're looking at customer level data, collection activities. Here we go. This is what I talked about, right? So we're taking a look at our performance. Let's see, we're doing correspondence. Okay, what does that mean, right? We also might want to look at, does that make sense? What's going on? Are we seeing a trend over time? And then maybe look at context created. Okay, what are we having? Effective management of that information as well. So just some interesting features here. Again, couple points. It's really customizable by the user, and then real time. This information is getting. I would guess this information is coming from an ERP, and it's automatically being pushed in to the report. So you can do that and refresh on the fly. So let's take a look at maybe a case study with some segment level AR insights. And so, as we mentioned, so let's say we want to look at this open AR for monthly. So we see that there's that trend we saw earlier. So we see this trend here, and we see this macro level trend. We're like, holy moly, what's going on here? So one thing we might do, okay, let's look at by segments and see what's going on here. So we see, all right, high dollar account, national account, high risk account, and then we see all other accounts. So what's we see what's really driving this here. So it's going to give us some insight. So look, the open amount increased steeply in 2017 really happened for all accounts, right? If we look between August and September, we're looking at the difference in the numbers here, but we see that the amount of the increase when we take out the other three things we're looking at here, the increases are big. So it looks like we have something that's across all the accounts. So then we might want to take another look. So we started at this high level. So let's look at the segment. So we got a problem. Let's take a look at the problem. Let's look at the segment. So that really told us it's not really segment related. So let's go within the segment, right? So let's look at past AR for national accounts. We see past due numbers. Oh, look at let's see what we're seeing here is the insight that we get looking at this level of data is 31 plus days past due accounts for September has almost doubled. So we see that number, right? It can be surprising to us or not surprising to us. Maybe there was some kind of program that we had. What's going on here? And then we can dig even deeper if we want to do that as well. So we can start to look. We can dig even deeper in there. We might see what's driving that number again. it's helping us dig down as deep as we'd like to go. We can also, I'm sure we can click on this number 2 and see what's driving the data. Another thing is just interesting. We have reports and dashboards. We can start to look at with the predictive analytics, and as you can see, it's pretty easy to use. You can look at look at these different. It's a good way to slice and dice the data. But again, we started with that one question, and then we can dig as deep as we'd like to. So just it's kind of what we looked at. We found the increased that really helped us understand what our issue was, right? We saw that there was some sort of issue, and we were able to see that the issue was we increased 31 plus days past due AR. So what's going on? What are the issues we can consider? How do we get that down? What's driving that? We can consider early payment discounts or late payment fines can help us as a corrective action, or we can revise the credit terms if we need to. So we have to look at obviously the cost and benefits of the early payment discounts or the late payment fines. What is that going to do to our customer relationship? What's that impact? What is the importance of that relationship as well? So a quick summary on the technology side. Ideal dashboard and reporting solution. You want quick access to that real-time accurate data. And then you want it to be easy to acquire further information. So that self-service reporting is key. That simple and smart UI responds to your requirements. So it's what they want to see, how they want to see it, and then offers that drill down capability for what I would say is an in-depth understanding. This is my favorite slide. So this is a slide. If you'd like a copy of the slide deck, please send me an email. We're definitely happy to send this slide to you. I also have a few articles that I've written based on these KPIs. Happy to share those with you as well. But this is a really slide that really outlines these KPIs that we have mentioned. So I would encourage everyone to. So again, we have the finance executives, that higher level view, right? The aggregate performance, DSO, cost of AR operations, and then things that we also like to see that we don't see as much as we'd like: open AR by customer segment, past due, and then our process indicators. So I love these 3 categories: process health, individual productivity, and that customer level insights. And being able to have a dashboard which leverages these metrics that are most important to your consumers is definitely going to help you take control of how and when you get paid. Running a little tight in terms of our Q&A, so I will go ahead and follow up with everyone directly with any questions that we wouldn't have had a chance to answer today. I want to bring Taylor back in so she can share with us the opportunity to learn much more about what's going on in the order to cash space and what companies of all sizes are doing to really deliver best-in-class AR at their companies. Taylor?
Yes, so our 6th annual Radiance Order to Cash Unconference will be held February 18th through the 20th in Houston at Minute Maid Park, home of the Houston Astros. We plan on having about 300 sessions over the course of 3 days, and those will cover a large array of topics across credit and finance, and will be organized in smaller peer-to-peer groups and be led by industry experts. So no, boring talking head sessions will be found there. It's an excellent opportunity for you to network with industry leaders and hear about lessons learned, best practices, and industry trends. If you're interested in learning more, you can do that at radiance.hiradius.com. We are currently running an early bird special for discounted registration. On the screen, you can see just a sample of some of the track sessions and speakers that we already have lined up, and we would love for everyone to join us.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Also encourage everyone to visit the AR High Radius website for thought leadership resources. I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as we wrap things up. I would like to once again thank Taylor for participating in the webinar today and helping me realize the value of the thought leadership commitment that both Treasury webinars and High Radius share together. So thank you very much, Taylor. And also would like to encourage everyone to answer our survey that will close immediately after the webinar is over. As I mentioned before, we always strive to improve the ROI that we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. So I would like to once again thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our webinar today. Please let us know what we can do better. Make the rest of your day great, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.